Welcome to SASH Performance, where we speak to the people behind performance and unpack what it really takes to reach the next level. I'm David de Villiers, and today I've got somebody sitting opposite me who really doesn't need much introduction in South African rugby circles. Coach Eugene Loffie Eloff. Loffie has spent decades in the game, coaching and working with players at different levels. And what makes today's conversation particularly interesting for me is the amount of talent he's seen come through the system over the years. Of course, we often talk about talent. We talk about speed, strength, skills, and performance. But when you get to the higher levels, everybody is talented. So what then separates the player who is good from the player who becomes great? What are the habits, the attitude, the discipline, the preparation, and perhaps those small things that give one athlete a competitive edge over another? And that's what I want to unpack today. Coach, welcome to SASH Performance. It's great to finally have you on.
Thanks, Davi, and thanks for talking about decades. It actually gives away my age, but let's give it a go, brother.
So before we get into the competitive edge itself, you've spent a lifetime around high-performance rugby, and you've seen an enormous number of talented players come and go. So when you look back over all those years, what do you think separates the athletes who actually make it from those who had all the talent but never quite got there?
Yeah, that's a question that we can spend hours with. It's difficult to compact it. It all begins with a boy having a dream and then chasing the dream and catching the dream. And it is hard work. A lot of times people don't know the effort that goes on behind the scenes. But David, it's important, all the aspects you mentioned earlier, the conditioning and all that stuff, it doesn't matter. It's all about emotional intelligence. We're spending a lot of time on the physical preparation of young kids and boys and men, but we're neglecting the mental capacity, taking it step by step. So yeah, to answer your question simply, it is hard work, it's dedication, it's determination, and most of all, it starts with a desire. Any young man needs to have the desire he wants to be a Springbok, or he just wants to enjoy his rugby, whatever. And then with that, hand in hand goes discipline. Now, discipline is not where your coach looks after you, your parents look after you, or a self-discipline, where you decide, I want it badly, and then determination, dedication, and so forth. And, a lot of time a dream has been taken away from a young man because somebody says he's too small or he's too this or to that. Nobody can take away your dream and how badly you want something in life, not to go fetch it and chase it.
Yeah. So, Coach, tell me, how quickly can an experienced coach recognize that a player has something different?
Well, an experienced coach can see it when a kid is at primary school. You can see it when a guy is still in his nappies and he starts playing with the ball outside. But really, I believe that you can identify these guys and maybe start developing in a position when they're more or less 15, 16, when they've grown 80% grown. And because if I say grow, also fitting a position, because although they say rugby is built for all shapes and sizes, a 1.5 meter boy cannot become a lock. It can become a Springbok. So, and that's why what I've done in my career is I've changed players positionally where I thought they would make it. For instance, Brian Abana was a scrum off at school. I moved to outside centre, and that's where he became a Springbok and eventually played at wing. So yeah, a good coach can identify that early in a player's life, and then there's steps to developing. Our kids at a young age are under pressure now to perform and to be in the A side. It's pressure from the coaches, from the school, and from parents. And I think there's a natural development process. And a good coach is rather a mentor than a coach. It's not, and of course, the coach earns his respect, and players earn your respect. And just developing those boys then, and you can quickly identify those guys with a natural talent. But David, this is where the surprise is. You get a lot of kids with natural talent. They always just do enough to be in the team. But then you get a guy with not all that talent. He keeps on working, he keeps on working, keeps on working, and eventually he passes the guy with the natural talent. And I've seen that happen as well.
And so that was actually my next question, and it's exactly that. My next question would be, can work ethic beat natural talent?
Work ethics is 90% of the success of a young man. And again, it comes to integrity and responsibility, self-responsibility, and just being true to yourself. And that's why I always like reading the stories about the man in the mirror. You cannot lie to that man. And I guess as a young player, and for parents as well, and for coaches, the message is don't give false alignments for a young player to say, listen, you are the next best thing. I can take examples now, the pressure that Marcus Miller is under. Everybody's saying he's the next Donny Gerber. And same with Sasha now. There's a build-up of a development of a player, and then at the right time, you unleash him. I think maybe currently we're unleashing a few young players, and they're getting a lot of damage, more psychological damage than physical, and they're all good enough. But I think a lot of horse trainers, and I actually met one in Johannesburg many years ago when I coached the Lions, and we were talking about biorhythms, but he told me that they'll have this top horse, that this horse chestnut, and they would train him and train him and train him. And when the time was right, they unleashed him. And maybe it's also something we as coaches can look at.
No, definitely. So what does coachability for a player, what does that look like if a player is coachable?
Well, if he's prepared to listen and learn, you get kids that you can't teach them anything. They don't have a learning spirit. So that's why, as well, with junior teams at schools, high schools and primary schools, I think part of a coach's job is to instill a spirit of, I'm hungry to learn. And let me tell you now, a coach, if he thinks he knows everything, it's the end of his career. And coaches also learn from players and vice versa. That's why I'll always come back to a coach earns his respect, but so does a player. And a player earns it by his dedication, by his work ethics, by his effort he's putting, and willingness to listen and learn. And you know what? I guess the older a player is, the more a coach will empower them to get their input as well. Because I think part of the development of a player is to. I like examples. You get these people get these little doggies. They walk on a short leash and they control him. Eventually, a long leash. Eventually, a long leash. Eventually, they leave him. The dog has got the discipline. Same, with the rugby player. You feed him. You see he takes responsibility, your leadership. You stand back and you also give him a voice. And then teams and individuals grow once their opinions also are taken in count. But then again, you get these guys that they just like to give an opinion. They don't like the game plan. They don't like this and that. Those guys are very sometimes disturbing in a team.
So that everything, it happens on field. But how much happens for the player now? How much happens when nobody's watching? Isn't that an important part as well?
Yeah, 90%. 90% is off the field. So I like the 90-10 because what you do off the field, you take to the field. So pre-season, 90% physical, 10% mental. On the field, 90% mental, 10% physical. That was always the numbers I used, just for example. But it's an important thing. Your behavior off the field will pull through automatically to what happens on the field. It's kids with disregarding discipline at home, respect, and those sort of stuff. You can actually see it. But that's, again, sometimes it's kids that are really under pressure, where a coach can pick that up and use that as a tool to teach that kid life skills. And that's part of what a coach's job as well. Yes, it's fantastic to win trophies and to win and see your boys become Springboks, but it's even more fantastic to see them become successful in life after school, after rugby, becoming a good father, a good husband, a good guy for society, and also a guy that with resilience that can see things through, especially in hard times when things don't really go your way. And I've got a guy that I coached who I think we should get on the program, Trevor. He's a sports psychologist. And he told me how scarred players are when they have long-term injuries and when their contracts are just expired and taken away. It's the end of it. And there was no contingency planning. And therefore, a coach is part of that planning, and also an agent when they get agents. It's part of their planning to make sure that that player has got something to do, have got a future ahead after rugby.
So
if it makes sense what I'm saying now.
100%. It makes a lot of sense. So my next question then, you spoke about Marcus Miller as well, and we all know that he had a brilliant year, especially last year in matric at school. So can a player become too comfortable being the best player at school?
No, it can be so, but I think in his case not. It's pressure. You know, I coached a guy, Dandre Gerber, and his father is Donnie Gerber. And he sat with me one day in my office and he said to me, Coach, you know what? Every time I run in the field, the people expect me to play like my dad. My dad, he was the world's best, and I'm not him. I can't be like that. So I don't think they become complacent, as you say. I just think they are under pressure because everybody's got this expectation. And it's a mistake that we make in the media, make in social media, make and look, we all should have heroes, but to blow it up and say, this is the next best thing. Give it time. Everything happens in time. All good things happen in time. And yes, there were guys like Joe van Niekerk and those guys that became Springboks very young, Brian and so on. But give it time. So when they hit the turf, they got longevity.
So I guess that it's really important. The environment around a player is also very important.
Yeah, and that's why a coach should know every single player, because some people have got difficult circumstances at home. It could be death in the family, it could be financial problems, could be a divorce. And if a player is not in touch, a coach, with those players who are really going through battles, you have to treat them differently. And I did it even at provincial level. You know, when a player came to me and said to me, listen, coach, things are going badly in my marriage. We're working on it. I knew I had to handle him different. And therefore, the coach's responsibility is to know your players, know their background, where they're from, and the circumstances they live in. And also know your customers of players that will misuse their position to try and manipulate you as a coach.
Yeah, no, 100%. So from a coach perspective, what role does disappointment and rejection play in creating great players?
Well, I think disappointment for everyone, even a coach and whoever who's got ambition, it's always a difficult thing to handle. I try and motivate the players to turn the disappointment around and prove people wrong. You've got one or two choices. You can go sit and feel sorry for yourself, or you can give up, or you say, I'll prove you wrong. And that's what they should do. That's what a coach is also instill into a guy. And you're going to maybe a coach that misses you, or you just don't gel, and he doesn't pick you. But that doesn't define you. That doesn't mean you have to stop. And chasing your dream, and that you think that you can achieve one day in your rugby career. And we're talking rugby now, but it's much more than just rugby, Loffie.
So, Coach, you've coached at very high levels. What characteristics keep appearing in the best players that you've worked with?
Willingness to work hard. Well, really, that is a big thing. The top players, the Springboks, they work hard, and they don't sit on social media every day. They really work hard. They sacrifice a lot. Where other guys have got more a balanced life, they sacrifice in that time. And in that time, when you're still getting audible, ready to hit the floor, in that time, it's really the sacrifice time. And then and then those players that don't let disappointment influence them. And any player could have a bad day. I think it's also important for a coach not to humiliate players in front of each other, because he knows he missed the tackle, he made a vital mistake in the game. It's to build on that, build character. Characters make a team. If I think back now of the teams that I coached, every team had a character. Yeah, I used to put them in 4 categories. The one is the leaders. That was just the natural leaders. They would come in, they would have a plan, and guys would stick to them. Then you get your supporter. He doesn't want responsibility. He will support the leader. You give him any job, he will do to the best of his ability. Then you'll have your analyst. And they can be a difficult bunch because they can sit the whole day and analyze and not get to a point. And then you get an important guy, your social guy. That's a guy that inspires the whole time behind the poles. Come on, guys, we got them. And Joe van Ecker very much was like that. Besides that, he played well. He would always motivate the guys. He was just a total motivator, and regardless of circumstances.
Sure. Well, I have an actual scenario for you. If you had, and I know I'm speaking about school players now, but if you had 2 equally talented 17-year-olds but you can only invest in one, what would make you as a coach choose player A over player B? And I guess that I know where this is heading, but I wanted to hear it again, because we get a lot of questions from parents with their boys that's 17 years old, and they wanted to know, so the talent is equal, and now he needs to play out another player, but the talent is exactly equal. So we wanted to know, just from a coach perspective, if you can only invest in one, who would that be?
Well, first of all, if you only invest in one, you should not coach. You invest in both, you give them both the same attention, the same coaching, and you pick horses for courses. There's not a winner here. If you have 2 good scrum offs, you pick them both, you work with them both, you pick, and that's also what Rossi does now. He's picking horses for courses.
Yeah.
There's not a favorite and a second favorite, a third favorite. Now, I know it feels like that when you're at the junior sides, but you give all the same treatment, the same coaching, and you pick your guy that fits the game plan that you're going to play against your opponents, because usually the coaches know the strengths of their opponents and the weaknesses, and that's where you strike them, and that's when you pick your team.
That's brilliant advice.
And also, I just want to say also that the guys that I try and motivate the guys that's sitting on the bench, that they don't sit there with their arms folded and not happy. They must be there. So if I was on the bench for scrummy, I would run up with water and motivate him to play well. And even though I know he's number 1 in the position, I'm his backup, because I know when I'm playing, he needs to be my backup as well. So if you can get that sort of synergy in a team, where it's not about me, myself, and I, it's us. There isn't an I in rugby. Not from coaching, not players, nothing. There's no I's, no I nuts. Yeah. It's it's a team. And that's why it's such a dynamic process to coach a team, and especially taking underdogs and starting to beat top dogs.
Yeah. So the second scenario, if you could give a 16-year-old, so it's normally grade 10, who wants to become a professional one day, if you could give him 3 things that he needs to start doing tomorrow, what would that be?
Well, the first thing is he must enjoy it. I know you expected something else. The second is the skill set of that position. The third is the physical conditioning for that position.
To hone down
that's
on that specific position.
Yeah. And then the rest. That's why I like that contingency from under 14 to first team. So right, under 14, this is our goals that we want them to achieve. Under 15, under 16. So by the time they get to the first and second team, the open sides, they got the skill set, they got the conditioning, they got the code of conduct, which is an important thing. They got that work ethics that you talked about. There's a code of conduct, and then it actually just works well.
So my second last question, Coach, is once a player trains really, really hard, gets the opportunity to go and do trials for instance, a Craven Week. Now that boy or girl does not get selected. So now it's a provincial coaches that do not select that specific player, what is the best advice that you will give to that specific player when he comes home and having the feeling that nothing worked, I've trained so hard, but I'm not going to get bigger opportunities in the future?
I think I've given that advice already. Take that disappointment and turn it around. Prove people wrong. Just remember, every coach he can pick his own side. How he wants to play his game plan, he'll pick the guys. Because at the end of the day, at that Craven week, he needs to take responsibility for the outcome of it. And again, I think I've already told you the story where I was invited to Craven Week trials with my boots in my hands, and I didn't get 1 minute on the field. I walked home, and I decided that was my motivation in life. So what I'm telling you, those guys that go home, not picked, sad, prove the people wrong, or stop playing. Go play hockey, go play other sports. But I would say, my advice to them is, and to parents as well, don't criticize the other players. Don't criticize the coaches in front of your boys, the players. Just support them and say, prove them wrong. And therefore, we can talk about a lot of players that haven't played Craven Week that became top Springboks.
Yeah, 100%. I love the phrase, prove them wrong. So finally, Coach, after everything you've seen in rugby, if talent only gets a player through the front door, is it only the work ethic that will keep him in the room?
Nothing is guaranteed, but it's hard work. The harder you work, the harder you surrender. Now, Lou Holtz wrote a quote in his book, good, better, best. Never ever rest until good is better and better is best. That's all you can do. You can only control the controllables.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time, your expertise and your willingness to share some of your
It's a pleasure.
Great insights. I'm sure that your advice and your viewpoints will greatly be appreciated, not by only aspiring players, but to their parents and I think the coaches alike.
Okay, no thanks. It's a pleasure. I don't know everything. I'm still learning.
Thanks, Coach.